Fasten your time machine belts. We're entering a portal to the past to discover erstwhile episodes and historical happenings. Airing on KYMN Radio, produced by the Northfield History Center, and hosted by Kosmo Esplan, this is Trek Through Time. Welcome, radio listeners. We are live from the History Hub in downtown Northfield. Okay, well, maybe we're not actually live, but, pre-recording is a good tool, and it's helpful. Dang it, my dirty little secret is out. I'm your host, Kosmo Esplan. Now, Trek Through Time, in case you don't know, or if you're a new listener, it's a monthly history podcast produced by the Northfield History Center and airing once a month on KYMN Radio. Now, we discover a lot of different topics about the rich history of Northfield. We've covered a lot of different subjects so far. We've looked at Northfield Radio, Northfield Pizza, yes, that is a thing, Northfield Theater, and of course the bank raid last month for September. But I'm also particularly excited about this topic and this guest. That's a teaser. I'm going to leave you on the edge of your seats and give you a drum roll later. After all, there's nothing more dramatic than a drum roll. Well, okay, maybe there is, but nonetheless, I'll give you a hint to start off. Knights and lions. No, it's not a medieval story. Let's see if you can guess it coming up. But before we get to our topic this month, I first want to touch on a segment that I always talk about with each episode called History in the Making. So it's kind of dedicated to exploring what new history or memories are being made in Northfield that might make their way into the history books someday. Who knows, little Kosmo Esplan Jr. might do a podcast about our topic in the future. This month, I'm going to cheat and color outside the lines this time and talk about something that happened in Dundas. I know, don't be mad at me. The Dundas Oktoberfest, their second annual event, took place last month on September 21st in their downtown. Now, it may or may not have ridden the coattails of DJJD, but it's a very exciting festival that they put on each year. They started last year, and it seems to be growing in popularity already. So it came to fruition in winter of 2023 when Chapel Brewing owner Tracy Vranich, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, she joined forces with Little Prairie Church pastor Penny Bonsell and her husband, Bavarian music meister Tom Bonsell. If you're confused already, the Bavarian music meisters, in case you can't tell, they're a traditional German instrument band. They're, I believe, 35 members, and they played at the Dundas Oktoberfest, and I believe they did last year as well. So they wanted to recreate a festival in the vein of Dundas's former jamborees. They had done stuff like Dundas Days before, but nothing had really occurred in a while. So the festival started last year, as I mentioned, and it always includes, as the online website states, family fun, food, beer, of course, cider, live music, and even more. There are a lot of fun activities and great foods, including brats, cheese curds, pretzels, cotton candy, the divisive culinary cuisine known as sauerkraut, no comment, caramel apples, soups, apple crisps, German potato salad, German-style beans, and even more, with the vendors being thoughtful enough to include gluten-free and vegetarian options. Now, the kickoff band was Todd and Tina, followed by, as mentioned before, the Bavarian Music Meisters. They added even more authenticity to the event. Fun events during the day included horse-drawn wagon rides, pumpkin painting, lawn activities, and a barrel train ride. Wow, lots of fun. The vendors included Little Prairie Church, Ruth's on Stafford, the Dundas Dukes, Martha's Eats and Treats, yummy, Chapel Brewing, of course, and Keepsake Cidery. Now, I'm still not entirely sure why Oktoberfest is held in September, but nonetheless, I'll forgive that. So, basically, Dundas festivals are back, and they'll be back again next year, I presume, and we're looking forward to that. And mark your calendar next year for September in downtown Dundas. It's a fun event if you missed it this year, so. All right, now moving on, we're going to take a look at what activities and events the Northfield History Center has coming up. So it kicks off this month with their monthly history happy hour, which returns on Monday the 7th, October 7th. Now, this always takes place in the History Center archives. The doors open at 5:30 for drinks, followed by the talk on the monthly topic from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. It's always an enchanting subject and an even more engrossing speaker. So this month, Elena and Don Pappas will present on Mantorville's historic Hubble House. I'm really excited for this one. The Hubble House isn't just iconic because of their mouth-watering chicken tenders. It's been visited across the ages by presidents and celebrities, with an impact on not just local but also statewide history. Now, I love going there not just for the food, but also for the history of it. They have a great big mural that takes up one of the walls, and it shows all of the celebrities who have been there across the centuries. I think it was founded in the 1800s. So I'm looking forward to this talk a lot. I think it'll be very intriguing. And then coming up on November 4th, another history happy hour, Toon Mint, Carleton professor. He will be delivering a talk about elephants in warfare during World War II in Burma. Now, this is a really interesting niche subject, so I'm really interested to learn more. It'll be on November 4th, a Monday. History happy hours are always on Mondays, so mark your calendar for October 7th and November 4th. Two very interesting talks, and I'm looking forward to them. But also, the monthly Monday at the Movies is back. Get ready for a spooky movie at the Grand Event Center sponsored by Culture Crew in the spirit of All Hallows Eve. Basically the fancy way of saying Halloween. Now, as usual, I will provide you clues to determine the movie pick of the month. Let's see how well you do. Clue number 1. Though a sequel was never produced, a follow-up to this 1993 holiday classic could have theoretically visited a realm of turkeys. Clue number 2. This may be the only animated film or film period that sees a boogeyman almost set Santa Claus on fire. Clue number 3. This family-friendly stop-motion animated musical fantasy dark comedy, that's a lot, from the unsettling mind of hair-raising auteur Tim Burton, features iconic Halloween town king Jack Skellington overthrow the North Pole to assume the role of St. Nicholas. Now don't worry, the movie isn't a bad dream if you catch my drift, unless you are a staunch opponent of mixing holidays together. Nonetheless, mark your calendars yet again. I hope you have a ballpoint pen out. For Monday, October 21st, the doors open at 5 o'clock for drinks and dinner service, followed by local produced short films starting at 6:15. Dinner ends and the movie starts at 6:30. It'll be a fun night out. So thank you to the Northfield History Center and Culture Crew for keeping history alive with these different events, and we look forward to what they have coming up next month as well. And now it's time to move on to our Axis of Antiquity this month, and to see who our memoir maestro will be. We'll start with number 1. Drumroll, please. The Axis of Antiquity for October is the history of Northfield College football. Now, I've been really looking forward to covering this topic because it's a chronicle that doesn't just pertain to football or sports fans, but it's truly a fascinating tale that appeals to everyone, and there is a lot to dig into here, so I'm going to try and get the generals down for you. I also chose this topic because of the upcoming game, the historic rivalry between Carleton and St. Olaf football teams. But first, let's go back in time to discover the origin of this historic rivalry. So the first game of American football commenced on November 6, 1869, but the National Football League, the NFL, was actually not formed until over 50 years later in 1920, so it took some time to get the momentum going. But since then, the sport has skyrocketed in popularity, and its audience demographic is still growing. But what about the popularity and enduring legacy of Northfield's two renowned college towns? Well, both football teams are members of the NCAA Division III. Let's start with Carleton's history, just because they're alphabetically first. So their football career originated in 1883, playing its first game against the University of Minnesota that year, and winning 4-2. Now, clearly rules and scoring were different back in the olden times, because now you can't score 2 points. But following that, they battled and tied what was then called the St. Olaf Kickers 4 years later in 1887, which was the first recorded game pitting the two teams against each other. And yet, somehow, their football was not officially sanctioned yet. They had to wait another 4 years until 1891 to get that, when they played and won twice against Faribault's Seabury Seminary. Following that, they played annual intercollegiate games against the U of M from 1896 to 1904, with the U winning all 9 matches by the overall score of 337-17. Now, this was one of the lower points of Carleton's career, but things started turning around for them starting the next year in 1905. The college won 10 championships within the span of 13 years, with an impressive record of 66 wins, 17 losses, and 2 ties. Now, the secret antidote to this was Claude J. Hunt. He joined as head coach in 1913 and led the team on to further glory and national recognition. In fact, they were undefeated from 1913 to 1916, outscoring their opponents 1,196 points to 20. They also beat the Chicago Maroons in an upset 7-0 in 1916. They also won against Stout, Cornell, Grinnell, Macalester, Beloit, and Hamline, all top-tier colleges, in 1915 with a combined score of 323-0. Unfortunately, Hunt left in 1917 and was replaced by Cub Buck, who led Carleton through the Spanish influenza pandemic as well as World War I. Now, let's switch gears and talk about St. Olaf. They had to work harder to allow intercollegiate competition. You see, football was somewhat frowned upon, especially on campus, for its supposed violence and brutality. Though requirements were formed to safeten the sport in 1903, St. Olaf was still not allowed to play against other colleges for 15 years, which was 1918. Now, there's a bit of a twist here, because Carleton and St. Olaf actually merged as one team for the 1918 season, one unit. You see, there were so many students off fighting World War I that they needed as many people as they could. However, camaraderie was still not the dominant emotion. Rivalries remained between members of the two crosstown campuses. Nonetheless, the two colleges played each other in the 1918 season thrice, actually. St. Olaf won the first ever competitive matchup 15-14 on November 18th of that year, and lost games 2 and 3, 0-35 and 0-7, respectively. St. Olaf played its first solo season starting the following year in 1919, when they took on Carleton as a fully formed team for the first time, and lost once more 7-15. They wouldn't win against the rival again until 1922, and winning once more in 1923, which was the first time they played at Laird Field. In what has been dubbed the Cereal Bowl, both teams have now played each other 103 times, with St. Olaf winning 56 times, Carleton 46, and one tie in 1941. The rivalry continues to this day. Now, the winning team wins the iconic GOAT Trophy, which has been given out since 1931, and the eagle on top of Bridge Square points the direction of the winning college each year. Following a 7-year consecutive loss to St. Olaf, Carleton regained the GOAT Trophy in 2022 and hung on to it last year as well. Being held at St. Olaf's Klein Field at Manitou this year, we'll see who achieves football victory this year. Sorry, had to do it. Now, you can actually buy tickets online. They're selling them exclusively online this year. It's $3 for students and seniors and $7 for adults. They won't be sold at the stadium, so go online to get your tickets now. Alright, well, I've covered kind of the general gist of what happened in the early formational years of St. Olaf and Carleton football, but trust me, there is still a lot more to delve into, which is why I need a memoir maestro. Our memoir maestro for this month will be Bob Sullivan, also known as Coach Sully to his players. Now, Bob was Carleton football head coach from 1979 to 2000, and he retired with 102 wins, the most of any Carleton football coach. Additionally, he wrote Knights of the Gridiron, a history of Carleton football from 1883 to 2005. And in 2022, Laird Stadium's field was renamed Bob Sullivan Field in honor of him. So I'm really interested to get his perspective as someone who had a very instrumental role in shaping that history, particularly for the Carleton Knights. Now, I should note that this is not some sort of signal of allegiance to Carleton or St. Olaf. I don't want either of you coming after me. So, also, he will be holding a talk on the subject at 50 North with local history writer Susan Vistendahl on October 8th. We'll talk about that and much more, so join me as we head back in time to talk with Bob Sullivan and explore the history of Northfield College football. Welcome to Trek Through Time, Bob. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm looking forward to talking about this with you. And are you excited about the Carleton-St. Olaf football game this year? Do you go every year?
I go every year, yes.
Yeah, I'm still every year, yeah. I've never gone. I hope to go this year. I think that it would be a really fun experience. So I want to get a little bit of background on you first. I kind of talked about your basic experience with Carleton in my intro, just touched on it a little bit, but if you could give us your perspective of kind of your coaching days and in a brief summary. I'm pretty sure most people know who you are, but...
Well, first of all, I've been coaching football for 61 years.
Wow.
My first 11 years were at Hill, which is now Hill Murray, and the next 9 were at Cooper High School in New Hope, Minnesota. 9 years there. 22 years at Carleton, and then 18 years with my son, Bubba, who's the high school football coach for 33 years.
Wow. So it runs in the family.
Yes, and both of us were English majors. Not very many football coaches were English majors.
Right. Joe
Paterno was one.
Okay.
From Penn State. And
sure.
Marv Levy was the other one.
Have you met any other, I'm sure you probably have, but met a lot of other coaches of college games and everything and kind of maybe swapped advice with them over the years?
Oh yeah, I went to clinics every year for 22 years at Carleton in various locales, Houston, New Orleans, LA, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had some coaching favorites, I guess you would say. Bill Walsh, who used to coach the 49ers.
Oh, wow.
Lou Holtz, who was a coach at Minnesota for a year or two, and then Notre Dame. And, of course, I had Gallardi at St. John's when I was there. And, yeah, that's about it, I guess.
So when did you first become interested in football? I'm curious about this. Had you played it before? What was your experience like before you started coaching?
Well, I was one of those guys that I was 14 years old. I knew I was going to be a football coach.
Mm-hmm.
So there was never any question about what I was going to do. I also knew I was going to be a major in English. I hated science.
I'm with you there.
Wasn't very good at math. So there was never much question of it.
Sure.
And I got a head job coming right out of college at Hill. Football coach, English teacher. So yeah, I never wavered from my youthful desires.
Right. So Carleton, you started in 1979, correct?
Yes.
So what had you done before then? You said you've coached football across the years for over 60 years. So what was your experience like before coming to Northfield?
The 11 years at Hill, in St. Paul, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Were all great.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, Hill was not part of the state high school league.
Oh, okay.
The Catholic League, the Central Catholic Conference it was called, involved Hill, Benil, De La Salle, Cretin, St. Thomas Academy, schools like that. It was probably the second best conference in the state at the time in football, next to the Lake Conference. And we were pretty good. We were good right from the get-go. In fact, my first game I ever coached at Hill, the seniors, because we started with sophomores and juniors.
Mm-hmm.
We beat Matamidi, the very first game we ever played, varsity level. And they had a 25-game winning streak, so we started out good right from the
Wow.
start.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And then I got the job at Cooper in 79. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. 69. So my first year at Cooper was 1970. And at that time, Armstrong High School had just opened. And they took every kid Cooper had that was a letterman. Went to
Really?
Armstrong, and Armstrong won the state that year.
Wow.
Most of them were Cooper guys. Meanwhile, I'm back at Cooper with 2 lettermen. So we started from scratch.
Right.
My teams,
Wow.
my teams at Hill, I'll guarantee you, would have beaten those first couple of teams at Cooper for sure. Well, we built it up over time and won the Lake Conference title in 77 and 78.
Wow.
So then I got the job at Carleton.
Right. And what was Carleton's football, career like at the time that you came in? They've had kind of some ups and downs over the years, you obviously being one of the more ups. But what were they like when you arrived in 79?
Not good.
To put it honestly, yeah.
They had won one football game
from
1964 to 1980.
What?
Over St. Olaf, I mean.
Really?
They won more games than that, but only one over St. Olaf the entire time.
Really?
That was 1973, which, by the way, Carleton at that time had Mike Barnes and Mike Grossman, 2 guys from Northfield High School.
Oh, okay.
Who helped win that football game. That was kind of ironic. So, again, it was not good. But we won right away the first year I got there. We won the division title.
Really?
We were in the Midwest Conference at that time. Carleton had been in the Midwest, and so had St. Olaf for a long time. Olaf dropped out of the Midwest, I think, in 78, right in there. And Carleton stayed in. So my first 4 years up, we were still in the Midwest Conference. And ironically, or whatever I should say, it would have been nice if we'd have stayed in there because we'd have won about 10 titles.
Really?
I guarantee you, yeah.
Jeez.
The MIAC is such a much better conference, stronger conference in football than the Midwest was.
More of a challenge?
Anyway, we did well there. We won 20 and lost only 5 and never lost a home game.
Really?
In that Midwest Conference. Then in 83, we went into the MIAC, of course. And the first couple of years were not good. We won a couple, but nothing big. Then in 1985, we turned it around.
Okay.
And then we went on that streak of, 10 out of 11, I think.
Really?
Then we had the snow game in 1991. Big snowstorm in October, Halloween snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
The game was canceled that year. And the only loss we had was 1989. Otherwise, we won 10 of the 11.
Really? Wow. And if you look at the stats, I believe that Carleton has won 46 and St. Olaf has won 56. So there's 10 of the 46 right there under your coaching, I guess. What is your favorite part of being a football coach? I'm sure that there's a lot of favorites, but is there something in particular that stands out to you over your 60-year career?
Well, it's the association with the kids, with the players. It was wonderful. Everywhere I was, particularly at Hill and Carleton, I got to coach just great kids, great people, and smart, by the way, at Carleton, for sure. You didn't have to tell them anything more than once. And Hill was kind of the same way. Cooper was tougher. That was the toughest job I had.
Oh, yeah?
But eventually we convinced him how to do things right.
Right.
But the associated with the kids in the game of football, which I fell in love with back in 1945, 46, watching newsreels on Saturday afternoon football.
And on the other end of the spectrum, how do you think, personally, from your experience, how do you think team sports can benefit one in life lessons?
Oh, God, tremendous. Me, for instance, for sure, if it hadn't been for sports, I don't know what I would have done. It motivated my entire life from day one. Builds your self-confidence. more than anything probably, teaches you teamwork. Football is the greatest team sport of all. What I mean by that is this. In hockey, which I love too, if the goalie's hot, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball, you got a pitcher, throws 100 miles an hour, 90, whatever, okay? Basketball, LeBron James, boom. Football, no.
Mm-hmm.
One guy can't do it. All 11 on offense and all 11 on defense have to be on concert. And so team-wise, it's the greatest game ever. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing about it is, it's a game that you're not ever going to be able to play again. You can play basketball, hockey, baseball till you're 45 years old.
Right.
But when you're 20 or 17 in high school, 18, whatever, or 22 in college, you're done. You're not going to play that sport again.
Mm-hmm.
So every game is very significant in your life.
Mm-hmm. That's a really fascinating perspective. I wonder if that sort of that framework of how the team operates and coordinates with one another is what makes it so enjoyable, even subconsciously, because I would say it's the most popular sport right now. Although baseball is America's pastime, but football is really popular. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why when people watch it and they see really the teamsmanship of it all coming together. What do you think is the most challenging part of coordinating a football team? What was the thing that you really had to kind of work hard for?
Well, first of all, a lot of people look at football and think it's a brutal sport.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it and think it's an art form.
Right.
And so it's a great coach's game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, intellectually, you're involved from day one of every week. Every
Mm-hmm.
week's different, depending on who you're playing. It's fascinating in many aspects. But to try to answer your question about, I don't know, what is it again you wanted? Exactly.
The most challenging part of guiding a team through how to play football, basically, and learning the game.
It's not really challenging. It's fun. It's enjoyable.
Right. Maybe
it's
that's
preparation. You've got to be with it 24/7, 7 days a week, 11 months a year. You get July off.
Right.
But, no, it's what you do. But it's fun. It's not like having a job.
Sure.
I say to people, I never worked a day in my life. I had a job that I loved, and I would work for nothing.
Yeah, maybe I asked that question why it was challenging, because I can just imagine how challenging it would be if you tried to coach me. You mentioned that how you kind of turned things around, first when you came in 79, but then again in 85. So in 1992, can you talk briefly about that year? Because I believe that were you first in the division that year, I believe?
No, we won the MIAC.
Oh, okay.
Title.
I see.
Well, what happened that year was two things. One, nobody got hurt.
Really?
I started the same 11 guys, 22, offense, defense, all 10 games. So that was number one. Number two, I had gone out to the University of Washington that spring. They had won the national title in Division I with this defense they had. It was a variation of what they call the bear defense. And we put that in. And we caught the other teams in the league unaware. They weren't ready. They thought we were still running the old defense. But we had this new defense, and it really worked.
Really?
For like 2 or 3 years, and then they caught up with it. But then we won the title.
Really?
So actually, I really felt all along we had some teams that were actually better. 86 and 88, for instance. And the 90-96 teams were pretty good, too. But that 92 team that won it all were for those two reasons. Nobody got hurt, and that new defense caught people unawares.
So it's kind of difficult asking for particular games that you would count as highlights of your career, because I'm sure that there's so many. But do you have any in particular that kind of stand out all these years later that you still think about?
Yeah, you want to hear them?
Yeah, go ahead.
1990.
Uh-huh.
St. John's, at St. John's.
Okay.
We got them beat.
Wow.
First time ever.
Really?
Less than 2 minutes left.
Uh-huh.
The officials had done a good job the entire game. All of a sudden, they make 2 bad calls back to back. I mean, really unbelievable calls.
Really?
I swear I can't even begin. I can explain what they were, but
Uh-huh.
they apologized after the game, of course, for blowing it.
Uh-huh.
We lost by 1 point.
No
And
way.
We should have won the game easy.
Wow.
And then 1986,
Mm-hmm.
we're playing St. Thomas here. They're number 1 in the country at that time, 7-0, and we beat them going away. Tim Nielsen, best player I ever coached, quarterbacked that game.
Mm-hmm.
We beat them 39-11. We were up 17-18 nothing at half. I thought, well, they're going to come back, but they never did. Anyway,
Really?
That was huge. That was
Wow.
a front page sports story.
That's crazy.
1993 St. Olaf game at Olaf. We're down in the fourth quarter. We beat them 51-48. Ryan Beckers, who came into the game at quarterback, third game of the year, because Teddy Klunder got hurt, threw 5 touchdown passes in that game.
Wow.
Toughest loss was probably 97. We lose to St. Olaf 14-12, and everybody in the locker room was crying. It was really a tragic thing.
1 field goal away. That's a bummer.
Well, we gained 453 yards to their 130,
Really?
but they ran back a kickoff. That was the difference.
Okay.
In 96, we played St. Thomas at home. We run up 760 yards of total offense,
Really?
which is still an NCAA record
I'm
for
sure.
a losing team.
Oh, no
Yes.
way.
We lose that
That's
game.
crazy. That was a twist. I didn't expect you to go there.
We lose that game 55-54,
Wow. That's tough.
and it's still an NCAA record.
Uh-huh.
And the other one was we had a big win in 1990 at the Dome, 31-30, in the last second game against Bethel. And the other one was probably early on in the Midwest Conference. We're down at Ripon. We were the only Minnesota school in the Midwest Conference at that time. We beat them 22-21 with two touchdowns and a field goal in the fourth quarter, and one in the last play of the game, 22-21.
Wow.
So those are some of them, I guess. The other one interesting was the snow game, which we won 6-3 against St. Olaf at our place. There were only 100. The weather was so bad, the wind, snow, rain, everything. And 6-3 was the final. You could only play on one end of the field. If you played on the other end, the wind just blew the ball back. If you
Really?
put it into the wind, the ball blew right back to you.
Jeez.
Serving was played from the 20-yard line on in.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, nobody could score anyway.
Uh-huh.
And there was nobody there. And I'm coaching. I'm thinking, I don't care who wins. I just want to
Right.
get the hell out of here.
Uh-huh. Wearing a big winter coat, I'm sure.
It was that bad. The weather was that bad.
Really?
That was the worst.
Wow.
Anyway, that's several of them.
Uh-huh. Very dramatic.
92 was probably another one against Concordia at home.
Okay.
We won the title that year, as you know. But we won that game on a blocked kick.
Oh, okay.
We're ahead. But they're going. They got a chance to win it with a field goal, chip shot. And Ashton Coleman, one of our players, blocks the kick. And we win the game.
Wow.
And that really is what led us to the title as far as other games.
Right.
Other games we won not easily, but better easily.
Sure. Yeah, well, football is my favorite sport to watch because I think that it's always fun when your team is winning by a lot. If they're up, like 29-0 or something like that. But I think it's even more fun when obviously it's a close competitive game and then you're just able to barely get a win in at the end. And so it sounds like some of those stories, sometimes Carleton was able to get one in and sometimes they weren't. But so I also want to talk about another memorable event. This occurred before you came to Carleton, and this ties into some of the pictures that we have here. the Leader Bowl, it was called, in 1977.
Meter bowl or whatever it was?
Yep.
Metric bowl.
Yes, that's right. So some conflicting titles I've heard. But so there's some photos here of it, and you weren't around at the time, but tell us what you know about the event.
Well, I didn't know anything about it until I got here.
Right.
But it drew a lot of fans, I guess. 9,000 people maybe, or
really?
several thousand.
Uh-huh.
Because it was so different. But the game itself was a farce. St. Olaf won like 45-0.
Yes. Uh-huh.
No, it was a well-publicized event nationwide.
Okay.
Because everything was metric.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting. But
the first and only in history, I believe.
Yes,
yeah.
And probably the only one since.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's never.
So here's some photos. I believe that this is from the Metric Bowl. Yeah, Metric football game. It says September 17th of 1977. Uh-huh.
Cheerleaders, the cheerleaders had different cheers.
Uh-huh.
It was,
There's a video you can pull up online of it where it's, I think it's on Carleton's Facebook page, we found it, and it shows a brief clip of the game, and it's all the people in the audience are wearing, or maybe it was the cheerleaders, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It says here, drop back 10 meters and punt. That was that was kind of their motto for it, I guess. Here's another picture of that, of the Metric football game.
We probably should talk about the GOAT trophy a little bit.
Right, yes. That's another prop that we have here. It's not the actual GOAT trophy, but this is from one of the ones that one of the players got, in particular Mark Thornton, who's sitting behind the camera right now. This is one that they hand out to all the players who win. And it's one of the most unique, interesting looking things I've ever seen in an art form. So what do you know about the history of it?
Well, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got to Carleton, I didn't know anything about it, of course. They told me about it, and one of the first stories I got was back in the day, both schools had farms.
Mm-hmm.
And they had their own cows, their own goats, their own horses even for riding.
Mm-hmm.
And the first story was probably apocryphal, but Carleton guys stole the goat from St. Olaf, a real goat.
Uh-huh.
So that's how.
Really?
I don't know if that's true or not. I have no idea.
Maybe it's one of those mythologies that never dies.
And then the other several things about the goat itself, trophy I mean,
Mm-hmm.
on Bridge Square, there's an eagle there.
Mm-hmm.
And after every game,
Yes.
not every game, but if you win and you hadn't won the year before, the entire team would go downtown
Mm-hmm.
on Bridge Square and crawl up and turn that eagle
Mm-hmm.
with his nose toward the school that won the game.
Right.
Carleton's won the last two, so it's obviously pointing that way.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever a team wins it, and they haven't, they go downtown and turn the eagle. That's a great tradition right there.
Mm-hmm. Do you know when that started? Because I know the GOAT trophy has been handed out since 1931, but I don't know when that actually originated.
Well, I'm not sure, but
Mm-hmm.
it had to be in the 50s. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a World War I statue, the whole thing is.
Oh, okay.
So that eagle's been up there since... somebody else would have to tell you that.
Sure.
And there's been several other pranks that were played. Usually the favorite one was burning the logo on the opposite school's football field at the 50-yard line.
Really?
At midnight or after the night
Wow.
before the game.
Uh-huh.
And that happened more than once, and during my time too.
Mm-hmm.
One time we posted a guard up in our press box to guard the blacks to make sure they didn't get to burn it. But a lot of times he'd wake up the next day and sure enough,
Uh-huh.
the logo was burned.
Right. Uh-huh. So what's interesting is that, and Susan Vistendahl touches on this in one of her Historic Happenings articles, is that the GOAT trophy is believed to have been designed by the same man who designed the Slab of Bacon trophy, which was fought over by Minnesota and the universities of Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's now been replaced by Paul Bunyan's axe. But oddly enough, it ended up in I believe it was a storage house in Wisconsin. So, and that was after we had won, actually.
One other story I almost forgot to tell you. The story of the lost goat. That's a good one.
Okay.
St. Olaf had won that goat trophy forever in the 70s, right? Mm-hmm. Somewhere in the late 70s, an enterprising Carleton student stole the actual goat trophy from St. Olaf. I'm guessing it had to have been at Laird Stadium because you'd have the goat trophy there to give in case you lost it. Mm-hmm. So he probably went behind, got it, whatever. So for 3 or 4 years, there was no goat trophy.
Really?
They had.
Wow.
In 1981, I was there by then. We beat them for the first time in a long time. And Billy Ford, our captain, quarterback, after the game went up to his bedroom, and there's the gold trophy on his bed. Mm-hmm. So some Carleton student or alum, probably an alum.
Right.
Stole that gold trophy.
Really? Wow.
That's how it got back.
Thank gosh that hasn't been a loss to the past in that case.
No,
yeah.
We're protecting it now.
Another question I had for you is, what was it? I mentioned in my intro in 2022, they named the field at Laird Stadium after you. So what was that like, being able to receive that honor?
Well, it was very humbling.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was wonderful and unexpected. Mm-hmm. It was great.
Mm-hmm. when you
over 500 of my former players were there, by the way.
500
for that.
Wow.
For that ceremony.
That's
showed up. Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a crowd for sure. So I mentioned also some of the different coaches that had been guiding the Knights throughout the years. One of them being Claude J. Hunt, who had a pretty good career with them.
Yes, he did.
Yes. Were there any others that stood out to you?
Well, Warren Beeson, who, I can't remember the exact years, but it was in the 50s. He was a very good coach. He played at the University of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. He'd been captain of the Gophers team as a center. And he won a lot of games at Carleton for like 3 or 4 years. Then he died in the middle of the season.
Really?
In 58,
okay.
7, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a heck of a job. He was
really
very good. And C.J. Hunt, like you say, back in the day, he won like 15 titles in that Midwest Conference for over a period of 25 years, however long he coached. Anyway.
Yeah, but you still have the most wins of any Carleton football coach with 102. Did you? I can't imagine that you ever probably got tired of coaching the game, since you said it was something that you just loved doing. So did you ever try any different, strategies or angles, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Right. Yeah. You mean strategically?
Yeah.
Football? No, stayed with it. The last 4 years that I coached, by the way, 97 to 2000, were not good.
Okay.
Record-wise, we were competitive still, but we kind of forgot how to win. And we had a couple of really tough losses in there too. But there were some other problems that I don't want to get into.
Okay.
And I, in fact, by then, I had started having heart trouble.
Oh, okay.
And after 2 games, both against St. Olaf, by the way, I was in the hospital overnight.
Really? Okay.
With heart palpitations, whatever. And since I've got a pacemaker, I'm better now. But
okay, that's good.
That kind of drove me out of things, by the way, that losing and then the heart trouble.
Yeah, well, I guess St. Olaf is partially to blame, too,
Yes,
right? We'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right, well, also you're going to be talking about this subject and probably even more with Susan Vistendahl at 50 North on October 8th. You said you've given quite a few talks with her already. Had you known Susan before joining forces with her for this?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read a couple of her books, or booklets, I guess you call them.
That's mainly how I accumulated some knowledge for this show, is reading her articles on that. So I hope to attend, and I'm sure that'll be really good and fascinating talk. But quick, before I let you go, I want to do a quick lightning round. So this is just quick questions that are usually followed by quick answers, if you're down for it. So first of all, what is your current favorite NFL team, if you have one?
Well, the Vikings.
Okay, I was going to say you don't have to say the Vikings.
And the 49ers would be the other one.
Okay, got it. What's your second favorite sport behind football?
Boy.
That one's a thought provoker.
Well, baseball and hockey and basketball.
Three-way tie?
Those are the three.
Okay. Favorite sports movie?
Field of Dreams.
Okay. I haven't seen that one yet. I should watch it. Have any of your players ever gone on to play professionally?
4 of them had tryouts. One, Mike Stam, would have been drafted for sure. The scouts all told me. He was a defensive lineman. He got killed after his junior year.
Oh, really?
He went home to Faribault, his hometown. In fact, I'm presenting him posthumously in their Hall of Fame in October 18th, whatever it is.
Okay.
He went home for Christmas after he'd been lineman of the year in the MIAC. And got a snowmobile, was driving down the railroad track and got hit from behind by a train.
Oh, no.
And killed instantly.
Wow, that's terrible.
So he was the best ever. The other 3, 2 were kickers, and they went and didn't make it. And then the other Guy Finney, he was an offensive lineman. Green Bay Packers were going to fly him in for a tryout in the spring. And I tell him about it. He says, I can't go. Why not? I'm afraid of flying.
Really?
So, honest to God.
Wow.
So he didn't go.
That's unfortunate.
Anyway, yeah.
Maybe it worked out for the better, because maybe some of his teammates would have not respected him as much for going to Green Bay.
Well, he probably wouldn't have made it, but anyway, if you were going to give him a tryout.
Right.
Yeah.
And then last one here. Have you ever had Gatorade dumped over your head?
Well, 92.
Okay.
You know, that one carried off and all that good stuff.
Right. Is it not easy to wash off? Is it sticky for a while?
Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah.
You're so excited you don't know for sure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. And then, well, I want to thank you for providing all of this info. It's been very helpful, and I've learned a lot. Last thing here, though. Do you have any predictions for who's going to win this year?
Well, Carleton's going to be favored, I'm sure. But on the other hand, it's going to be very close, and it's at Olaf. And Olaf's pretty good, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would say it's like the Gopher or the Georgia-Alabama game the other day.
Oh, right.
2 points either way. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, it'll be exciting for sure. And we'll see if Carleton retains the GOAT trophy or if they move the Eagle towards St. Olaf. I believe St. Olaf is 3-0 right now, and Carleton is 2-1. So it'll be a good game. But thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. It's been great to meet you and great to talk about this. So, all right, we look forward to seeing the talk and seeing the game.
Okay, Kosmo, thank you.
Yes. Wow, that was a lot of detail. I want to thank Coach Bob Sullivan very much for coming on and providing his expertise on this topic. There's a lot to it, from the GOAT trophy to the rivalry and his coaching career, so I hope that you enjoyed it. I sure did. Additionally, I would like to thank Sean Allen, Mark Thornton, and Bryn Artley at the Northfield History Center for producing this, and Rich Larson at KYMN for broadcasting. Also, special thanks to Susan Vistendahl for historical consultation on this. I definitely needed it. And, as usual, thank you to my parents for supporting me in this venture. And at this time, I normally like to close the show by mentioning an archival anniversary, but this time I'm going to do something different. I want to mention a pioneer of the past. I want to focus more on the topic that we've been talking about and leave that in your minds. So this month's pioneer of the past who played a very important role in shaping Carleton and St. Olaf football history was Claude J. Hunt, who I mentioned earlier was one of Carleton's best coaches. He led the Carleton team to several victories, several championships, and inspired his team players, very similar to Bob Sullivan. So let's not only remember the role that Claude J. Hunt or Bob Sullivan played in shaping local college football, but the immeasurable roles that all the players across the years have played in doing just that. This has been Voyage 5 of Trek Through Time. I'm your host, Kosmo Esplan, reminding you to make history happen.